Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to Claws with Kirsten. Today is another pen video, but first, new set. I've got a chained up dingly dangly jade green magnetic set today. Very fun. Once again, I do custom press on nails as a hobby, so this is just my weekly rotation, or bi-weekly rotation rather. So today's video is all about extra fine pens. I've mentioned in the past that I'm more of a broad nib, stub nib, sometimes a medium nib kind of girl, depending on how thick that medium line width is. However, today I'm actually taking a look at my pen collection and going through what kinds of pens I have, and I decided to sort them by the nib size just to see which ones do I reach for more. And regardless of the fact, or rather, despite the fact that I tend to like broad nibs a little bit more, I actually have 5 different extra fine nibs. And the reason why I have these 5 of them is because sometimes they're good for journaling in really small spaces, or you need to write something really small. And obviously, a broad nib, you can't do that. All your letters are just going to be smudged together. And so I still have these 5 in my collection now, and I'm kind of going to go over what each of them are. So first, I'm going to show you this Franken pen over here. So this is a pen that you would have seen in my best pen for under $10 video. And in that video, this pen originally has a Naginata nib. However, I've now fitted it with something else. So what I have here is the HongDian EF nib instead. Hoping this will focus. Yep, there we go. So I'm just gonna say it's a HongDian EF. That's sort of how it writes. Very easy to use it for when you want to write in small spaces. One thing about this is it has quite a bit of feedback in this nib. It's not the smoothest, glassiest feeling. So that's my number 1. And then number 2, I'm going to talk about my Pilot Metro. And this is my first ever fountain pen. I previously used to use dip pens and calligraphy nibs, etc., like your Zebra Gs and etc. So when I moved into fountain pens, I was kind of expecting a different feeling, maybe something a bit smoother, and I was like recommended to buy this pen. So I thought, okay, great, Pilot, love Pilot pens. Let's see how this one wrote. And at the time, I didn't realize that I liked using broad nibs and medium nibs instead of fine and extra fine. So I got the fine because in gel pens and even in dip pens, a lot of them are very fine, and you can sometimes with the dip pens flex them out. So I thought it was kind of going to be the same thing with fountain pens. It was not, so it was kind of like a very disappointing first fountain pen purchase. But if you like fine fountain pens, the Pilot Metro or Metropolitan, and I have this one actually in a fine, but it does write, as you can see, just like even finer than the extra fine here, which is why I'm categorizing it within this extra fine category. I know that Pilot, not for this line or this model, sorry, it's like something's in my throat or something like that. I know that they also make needlepoint, which is even finer than this and finer than the extra fine of this, but for me, I have never tried it, and I imagine it to give a lot more feedback than a broad or a medium would. So this pen, I kind of have a Again, a hate-love relationship with it, right? I love the way it looks, love the fact that it's sentimental, etc., etc. I don't like the way it writes. Everyone tells me that pilots are like really, really fine. They're really, even though they're so fine, they're like super glassy, super smooth. I just don't find that with this particular pen. And it's weird because I've tried other people's Pilot Metros and other people's like Vanishing Points and etc. And theirs are smooth. Mine is just not smooth, and I have no idea why. I've like flushed it, washed it, looked at that nib under a loop, and I can't figure out for the life of me why it writes with so much feedback. And it's not that it's scratchy, it just feels like I'm taking a coarse wooden dowel and just scratching a piece of paper, or like if I took like a toothpick and I just started writing with it, and it's not so much like the super sharp end of the toothpick, which is like on a slant. That's kind of what it feels like. I dislike that feeling. I think what I will do is I can buy one of these nib units for like about $10 Canadian, and I'll just switch it out. Next, I have another Pilot fountain pen. This is a vintage fountain pen. I got this recently, and I believe that this was actually made from like when Pilot franchised some of a company in Korea, or they let a company in Korea use it. You can see that there is a stylized P, so it says Pilot and then P on it, which is a bit different from other Pilots that you will see. And because of this, I'm just gonna call this Pilot Korea. It also has a lot of like Korean writing on the side of the pen over here, and it says like the Korean Institute of Energy Research, which is still around today, which is pretty cool. This might have been like a commemorative pen for people who worked there, or this could have been, I don't know, like a souvenir or something. I'm not entirely sure. But the person who I bought this from told me that they actually got it in Japan. So it might have been made in Korea, went back to Japan, or maybe made in Japan, moved to Korea, came back to Japan. No one knows. But that's the kind of cool thing about buying like vintage items or secondhand items, is that you will have like an interesting story to go with the pen. So as you can see, this one writes just like the Pilot Metro up here. Again, so it's probably a fine from Pilot. However, both of these write thinner than the Chinese extra fine nib above. So again, this is the pen. It's really, really pretty. It's quite slender, but it has a little bit of weight in it, which makes it easier to write with. Next, I have this magnetic space pen. Really like the magnetic cap. Hasn't dried out on me in the last couple weeks that I've had it, even after I haven't used it for a week or so. And this is the Glenbeto extra fine nib. And you can see that this one, although it's actually written as extra fine here, it totally does not write like an extra fine. Like that's almost like a fine to medium point. It's quite large. We're going to move on to this one. This is the HongDian H3, which at first I was like, oh my god, it's so chintzy, and then the second I put silicone grease here and it stopped having that like metal on metal sound, it was great. This is another EF. All right, so let's just zoom in on this and take a quick look at how these look like. Okay, right here, maybe even a little bit closer. Okay, so as you can see, out of all of these, this one is definitely the thickest. Then after that, I would say the Glenbeto is the thickest, and then the HongDian EF nib that I retrofitted on that unbranded pen is a second. Then it goes to the extra fine nib from the HongDian H3. Then it will probably go to one of these two, the Pilot Metro or the Pilot Korea. Either of those are about the same. So that's how I would rank them in terms of thickness. The Glenbeto is very, very smooth to write with a little bit of feedback, not too much. The HongDian extra fine nib on the H3 is also extremely, extremely smooth. You can see that all of them are, with the exception of my Metro's not really a wet writer, but everyone else here is pretty, it's a wet writer for all of them, except for the Pilot Metro. So zooming out again. Oops, that's zooming in. All right, cool. Okay, so let's kind of discuss these pens all together. So sort of like which one do I use the most versus which ones do I use the least. The 3 down here I definitely use more than the 2 up here. The 2 up here, the first one, I've had for a shorter amount of time, so I just haven't gotten to use it as much. This one, it's like I almost actively choose to not use it. Every single time I have an option, I always go for something else. I have no idea. It's probably like a mental thing, like the reason why I don't pick it up. So, and it also tends to dry out a lot. My Pilot Metro like dries out all the time. I can leave it for like maybe like 2 days, 3 days at most. And then I go to pick it up to use and it's like a hard start every single time, like without fail. It doesn't happen with any of my cheaper pens. It doesn't happen with any of my other extra fines. It only happens with this, or even any of my other fine pens, medium pens, whatever. Only happens on this one. And I have no idea. There's like, I tried like blowing into the cap to see like, is there a hole at the end here? And there was not. So I have no idea why this pen is so finicky and annoying to use, quite frankly. But these 3 are really great, and I highly recommend these 2 over here. I think out of the 3, I actually enjoyed this one the most, even though it is a pretty, like at first I thought that it was like super chintzy, and it still is kind of chintzy. However, it has grown on me. It's extremely reliable. I can not use it for like a couple weeks, come back, it writes immediately. It is smooth with just a hint of feedback. It is a wet writer. It can handle, I've put like shimmers in it before and it was fine. So shimmers are fine, sheeners are fine. It's a wet writer. It just kind of like ticks off all the boxes that I like in a nib, other than the fact that it's an extra fine. So it still gets the job done for when I need to write in really, really small spaces. So out of all of them, I would say number 1 goes to this guy. And with that, I think that's it for today's video. Thank you for checking in, and I hope you liked it. Bye.